Autobiography of Paramahansa Yogananda. Paramahansa Yogananda, born Mukunda Lal Ghosh, January 5, 1893 to March 7, 1952, was an Indian Hindu monk, yogi and guru who introduced millions to the teachings of meditation and Kriya Yoga through his organization Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF Yogoda Satsang Society, YSS of India, and who lived his last 32 years in America. A chief disciple of the Bengali yoga guru Swami Sri Yukteswar Giri, he was sent by his lineage to spread the teachings of yoga to the West, to prove the unity between Eastern and Western religions and to preach a balance between Western material growth and Indian spirituality. His long-standing influence in the American yoga movement, and especially the yoga culture of Los Angeles, led him to be considered by yoga experts as the father of yoga in the West. You are walking on the earth as in a dream. Our world is a dream within a dream. You must realize that to find God is the only goal, the only purpose for which you are here. For Him alone you exist. Him you must find. From the book The Divine Romance, Yogananda was the first major Indian teacher to settle in America, and the first prominent Indian to be hosted in the White House by President Calvin Coolidge in 1927. His early acclaim led to him being dubbed the 20th century's first superstar guru by the Los Angeles Times. 6. Arriving in Boston in 1920, he embarked on a successful transcontinental speaking tour before settling in Los Angeles in 1925. For the next 2.5 decades, he gained local fame as well as expanded his influence worldwide. He created a monastic order and trained disciples, went on teaching tours, bought properties for his organization in various California locales, and initiated thousands into Kriya Yoga. By 1952, SRF had over 100 centers in both India and the US. Today, they have groups in nearly every major American city. His plain living and high thinking principles attracted people from all backgrounds among his followers. He published his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, in 1946, to critical and commercial acclaim. Since its first publishing, it has sold over 4 million copies, with Harper San Francisco listing it as one of the 100 best spiritual books of the 20th century. Former Apple CEO Steve Jobs had ordered 500 copies of the book for his own memorial, for each guest to be given a copy. The book has been regularly reprinted and is known as the book that changed the lives of millions. A 2014 documentary, Awake, The Life of Yogananda, won multiple awards at film festivals around the world. His continued legacy around the world, remaining a leading figure in Western spirituality to the current day, led authors such as Philip Goldberg to consider him the best known and most beloved of all Indian spiritual teachers who have come to the West. Through the strength of his character and his skillful transmission of perennial wisdom, he showed the way for millions to transcend barriers to the liberation of the soul. Yogananda was born in Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh, India, to a Hindu Bengali Kayastha family. 12. He was the fourth of the 8 children, and second of the 4 sons, of Bhagavati Charan Ghosh, the vice president of Bengal Nagpur Railway, and Gyanprabha Devi. According to his younger brother, Sananda, from his earliest years young Mukunda's awareness and experience of the spiritual was far beyond the ordinary. 12th. Since his father was a vice president of the Bengal Nagpur Railway, the traveling nature of his job would move his family to several cities during Yogananda's childhood, including Lahore, Bareilly, and Kolkata. 2. According to Autobiography of a Yogi, when he was 11 years old, his mother died. Just before the betrothal of his eldest brother Ananta, she left behind for Mukunda a sacred amulet, given to her by a holy man, who told her that Mukunda was to possess it for some years, after which it would vanish into the ether from which it came. Throughout his childhood, his father would fund train passes for his many sightseeing trips to distant cities and pilgrimage spots, which he would often take with friends. In his youth, he sought out many of India's Hindu sages and saints, including the Soham, Tiger, Swami, Gandha Baba, and Mahendranath Gupta, hoping to find an illumined teacher to guide him in his spiritual quest. 2. After finishing high school, Yogananda formally left home and joined a Mahamandal hermitage in Varanasi. However, he soon became dissatisfied with its insistence on organizational work instead of meditation and God perception. He began praying for guidance. In 1910, his seeking after various teachers mostly ended when, at the age of 17, he met his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar Giri. 2. At this time, his well guarded amulet mysteriously vanished, having had served its spiritual purpose. In his autobiography, he describes his first meeting with Sri Yukteswar as a rekindling of a relationship that had lasted for many lifetimes. We entered a oneness of silence, words seemed the rankest superfluities. Eloquence flowed in soundless chant from heart of master to disciple. With an antenna of irrefragable insight, I sensed that my Guru knew God, and would lead me to Him. The obscuration of this life disappeared in a fragile dawn of prenatal memories. Dramatic time. Past, present, and future are its cycling scenes. This was not the first son to find me at these holy feet. 2. He would go on to train under Sri Yukteswar as his disciple for the next 10 years, 1910-1920, at his hermitages in Serampore and Puri. Later on, Sri Yukteswar informed Yogananda that he had been sent to him by the great guru of their lineage, Mahavatar Babaji, for a special world purpose of yoga dissemination. 2. After passing his intermediate examination in arts from the Scottish Church College, Calcutta, in 1914, he graduated with a degree similar to a current day Bachelor of Arts A, which at the time was referred to as an A.B. From Serampore College, the college having two entities, one is a constituent college of the Senate of Serampore College University and the other is an affiliated college of the University of Calcutta. This allowed him to spend time at Yukteswar's ashram in Serampore. In July 1914, several weeks after graduating from college, he took formal vows into the monastic Swami order. Sri Yukteswar allowed him to choose his own name, Swami Yogananda Giri. 2. In 1917, Yogananda founded a school for boys in Dayaka, West Bengal, that combined modern educational techniques with yoga training and spiritual ideals. A year later, the school relocated to Ranchi. 2. One of the school's first batch of pupils was his youngest brother, Vishnu Charan Ghosh, who learned yoga asana there and in turn taught asana to Bikram Chaudhary. 13. This school would later become the Yogoda Satsang Society of India, the Indian branch of Yogananda's American organization, Self-Realization Fellowship. Teaching in America, meditating in 1910 and 1920. While in meditation one day at his Ranchi school, Yogananda received a vision. Faces of a multitude of Americans passed before his mind's eye, intimating to him that he would soon go to America. After giving charge of the school over to its faculty, and eventually to his brother disciple Swami Satyananda, he left for Calcutta. The following day he received an invitation from the American Unitarian Association to serve as India's delegate to an international congress of religious liberals convening that year in Boston. 14. Seeking out his guru's advice, Sri Yukteswar advised him to go. Later, while in deep prayer in his room, he received a surprise visit from Mahavatar Babaji, the great guru of his lineage, who told him directly that he was the one chosen by the masters to spread Kriya Yoga to the West. Reassured and uplifted, Yogananda soon afterwards accepted the offer to go to Boston. This account became a standard feature of his lectures. In August 1920, he left for the United States aboard the ship, the City of Sparta, on a 2-month voyage that landed near Boston by late September. 15. He spoke at the International Congress in early October, and was well received. Later that year he founded the Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF, to disseminate worldwide his teachings on India's ancient practices and philosophy of yoga and its tradition of meditation. 16. Yogananda spent the next 4 years in Boston. In the interim, He lectured and taught on the East Coast 17, and in 1924 embarked on a cross-continental speaking tour. 18,000 came to his lectures. 2. During this time he attracted a number of celebrity followers, including soprano Amelita Galli-Curci, tenor Vladimir Rosing and Clara Clemens Gabrilovich, the daughter of Mark Twain. In 1925, he established an International Center for Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles, California, which became the spiritual and administrative heart of his growing work. 1519 Yogananda was the first Hindu teacher of yoga to spend a major portion of his life in America. He lived in the United States from 1920 to 1952, interrupted by an extended trip abroad in 1935-1936, and through his disciples he developed various Kriya Yoga centers around the world. Yogananda was put on a government watch list and kept under surveillance by the FBI and the British authorities, who were concerned about the growing independence movement in India. 20. A confidential file was kept on him from 1926 to 1937 due to concern over his religious and moral practices. 21. Philip Goldberg's biography describes Yogananda as being up against a perfect storm of America's worst defects: media sensationalism, religious bigotry, ethnic stereotyping, paternalism, sexual anxiety, and brazen racism. 22. In 1928, Yogananda received unfavorable publicity in Miami, and the police chief, Leslie Quick, prohibited Yogananda from holding any further events. Quick said it was not due to a personal grudge against the Swami but rather in the interest of public order and Yogananda's own safety. Quick had received veiled threats against Yogananda. 23. According to Phil Goldberg, it turns out that Miami officials had summoned the British vice consulate to advise them on the matter. One consulate officer said that the Miami city manager-in-chief Quick recognized the fact that the Swami was a British subject and apparently an educated man, but unfortunately he was what is considered in this part of the country a colored man. Given the South's cultural mores, he noted, the Swami was in great danger of suffering bodily harm from the populace. 22. Visit to India, 1935-1936. Edit. In 1935, he returned to India via ocean liner, along with two of his Western students, to visit his Guru Sri Yukteswar Giri and to help establish his Yogoda Satsang work in India. While en route, his ship detoured in Europe and the Middle East. He undertook visits to other living Western saints like Therese Neumann, the Catholic stigmatist of Cornishrooth, and places of spiritual significance, Assisi, Italy to honor Street Francis, the Athenian temples of Greece and prison cell of Socrates, the Holy Land of Palestine and the regions of the Ministry of Jesus, and Cairo, Egypt to view the ancient pyramids. 24. In August 1935, he arrived in India at the port of Mumbai, and due to his fame in America, he was met with many photographers and journalists during his short stay at the Taj Mahal Hotel. Upon taking a train eastward and reaching the Howrah station near Kolkata, he was met with a huge crowd and a ceremonious procession led by his brother, Vishnu Charan Ghosh, and the Maharaja of Kasim Bazar. Visiting Serampur, he had an emotional reunion with his Guru Sri Yukteswar, which was noted in detail by his Western student C. Richard Wright. 2. During his stay in India, he saw his Ranchi Boys School become legally incorporated, and took a touring group to visit various locales: the Taj Mahal in Agra, the Chamundeshwari Temple in Mysore, Allahabad for the Kumbh Mela of January 1936, and Vrindavan to visit an exalted disciple of Lahiri Mahase, Swami Keshavananda. 2. He also met with other various people who caught his interest: Mahatma Gandhi, whom he initiated into Kriya Yoga, woman Saint Anandamoyima, Giri Bala, an elderly yogi woman who survived without eating, renowned physicist Chandrasekhara Venkat Raman, and several disciples of Sri Yukteswar's Guru Lahiri Mahase. 2. While in India, Sri Yukteswar gave Yogananda the monastic title of Paramahansa, meaning supreme swan, and indicating the highest spiritual attainment, which formally superseded his previous title of Swami. 25 In March 1936, upon Yogananda's return to Calcutta after visiting Vrindavan, Sri Yukteswar died or, in the yogic tradition, attained Mahasamadhi 26 at his hermitage in Puri. After conducting his guru's funeral rites, Yogananda continued to teach, conduct interviews, and meet with friends for several months, before planning to return to the US in mid 1936.
Return to America, 1936. Edit. In late 1936, Yogananda's ship arrived in New York Harbor, passing the Statue of Liberty. He and his companions then drove in his Ford car across the continental US back to his Mount Washington, California headquarters. Rejoined with his American disciples, he continued to lecture, write, and establish churches in Southern California. He took up residence at the SRF Hermitage in Encinitas, California, which was a surprise gift from his advanced disciple Rajarsi Janakananda. 27-28. It was at this hermitage that Yogananda wrote his famous autobiography of a yogi and other writings. Also, at this time he created an enduring foundation for the spiritual and humanitarian work of Self-Realization Fellowship, Yogoda Satsang Society of India. 29. Yogananda with his autobiography, 1950. In 1946, Yogananda took advantage of a change in immigration laws and applied for citizenship. His application was approved in 1949 and he became a naturalized US citizen. 22. The last 4 years of his life were spent primarily in seclusion with some of his inner circle of disciples at his desert retreat in Twentine Palms, California, to finish his writings and to finish revising books, articles and lessons written previously over the years. 30. During this period he gave few interviews and public lectures. He told his close disciples, "I can do much more now to reach others with my pen." 31. Death. Edit. In the days leading up to his death, Yogananda began hinting to his disciples that it was time for him to leave the world. 32. On March 7, 1952, he attended a dinner for the visiting Indian ambassador to the US, Binay Ranjan Sen, and his wife at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. 33. At the conclusion of the banquet, Yogananda spoke of India and America, their contributions to world peace and human progress, and their future cooperation. 34. Expressing his hope for a united world that would combine the best qualities of efficient America and spiritual India. 35. According to an eyewitness, Daya Mata, a direct disciple of Yogananda, who was head of the Self-Realization Fellowship from 1955 to 2010. 36. 37. As Yogananda ended his speech, he read from his poem My India, concluding with the words, "Where Ganges, woods, Himalayan caves, and men dream God, I am hallowed, my body touched that sword." 38. As he uttered these words, he lifted his eyes to the Kutastha center, the Ajna Chakra or spiritual eye, and his body slumped to the floor. 32. 39. His followers said that he entered Mahasamadhi. 39. 40. 41. 42. 22. The cause of death was heart failure. 43. His funeral service, with hundreds attending, was held at the SRF headquarters atop Mount Washington in Los Angeles. Rajarsi Janakananda, who Yogananda chose to succeed him as the new president of the Self-Realization Fellowship, performed a sacred ritual releasing the body to God. 44. According to the book Divine Interventions, True Stories of Mysteries and Miracles That Change Lives, for 3 weeks after his death, Yogananda's body showed no signs of physical deterioration and his unchanged face shone with the divine luster of incorruptibility. A notarized letter from Harry T. Rowe, the mortuary director, added, "The absence of any visual signs of decay offers the most extraordinary case in our experience. The state of perfect preservation of a body is, so far as we know from mortuary annals, an unparalleled one." Yogananda's body was apparently in a phenomenal state of immutability. No odor of decay emanated from his body at any time. For these reasons, we state again that the case of Paramahansa Yogananda is unique in our experience. 45. Yogananda's remains are interred at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Great Mausoleum, normally closed off to visitors, but Yogananda's tomb is accessible in Glendale, California. 37.